Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to cover installation of a oil catch can for the 2020 Suburban. This is a 5.3 liter engine. And the part that we're going to install is a Corsa Performance model CC0001.
Check out the links in the video description to see information on how to purchase the products featured in this video.
So what's in the box for this catch can? It's a Corsa part number CC0001 for a GM 14 and 19 truck and 2015 to 2020 SUV. So we've got first an aluminum bracket that holds the catch can. We've got two hoses that come in there, and they're different lengths. So we'll have to determine which one goes where on that. And there's a bag here of parts. Inside the bag there's two plastic hose barbs, two NPT fittings for the catch can machine part, and then the other end of the hose goes to an OEM style click-on hose fitting for going into the PCV system direct fit. And then of course there's the catch can itself, which is really pretty nice. I was kind of impressed with it. It's an aluminum part, anodized. It has a bowl here that collects the oil, and then there's actually a plug on. This is one of the reasons I got this model. There's a plug on the back for a drain if you wanted to put in either a automatic drain or a valve or somewhere, if you didn't want to just always be unscrewing the bowl to get to drain the oil. You could do a valve there, so that's pretty cool. So inside you've got the bowl itself, which again, anodized black, and then here's the guts of it. So we have a nice logo on top. We've got 3 screws that are going to interface with the bracket, so you get some adjustability there of your angle. There's 2 ports that are both labeled very well, port A and port B. And this is important for the flow of the gas, of the air with the oil in it that's coming out through the PCV system that you want to filter the oil out of. So underneath, within here, there's a bronze filter, as you can kind of see under here, and this is probably more of like a splash guard or something that once the oil drips through, keeps it from kind of re-atomizing and becoming vapor again, and allows it to store in the bottom. Coming from the crankcase is going to come in through port B, run through this filter. Whenever it collects oil from that filter, the oil will drain through down into the bottom, into the well, and then the air that's been filtered out or has had the oil separated from it will go out through this hole, out port A. So for today, I'm going to install it just as is. There's a little bit of pre-prep that we're going to do here to get seal all the fittings. So I'll go ahead and kind of do that pre-work here. There's also, we have to get the hose barbs for these installed. So I don't know what length I'm going to make all the hoses just yet, but I'm going to go ahead and install these fittings on, and then I'll cut to length if I need to for the parts that go into the connections to the catch can itself. That'll allow me to kind of route it the best way for me. So we'll start with putting the fittings onto this hose. All right, so it may require a little bit of persuasion. I like to use just a touch of lots of stuff you can do. I have a bottle here of, it's mostly water with just a touch of dish detergent in it. I just use that to help slide it on. That'll get it. So that's one.
Want my water? That's two.
Those are ready to go. And then for the other fittings, they recommend you use either Teflon tape or a thread sealant paste. I prefer, for this application, I prefer using a tape because it'll, it'll clean up better if I ever have to take it apart. And plus it won't leave a residue. And so this will be these fittings here that go, screw into the side. Like that. I'll go ahead and put some Teflon tape on this connection in addition to the plug on the bottom. Okay, so for wrapping these fittings, got my tape here. You always want to wrap it in the direction that the fitting turns when you're tightening it. Therefore, when you're tightening it into the threads, you're not essentially rolling up and backing off the tape that you've applied. That's kind of a tip. Getting it started is always the hardest part. So this isn't exactly holding, a lot of fluid, a lot of liquid. So we don't have to go nuts cranking it down. So I'll just give it a few turns. And I'll probably clean up that first edge with a razor blade. Okay, so for the plug, I put a few extra turns of Teflon tape on here because this actually needs to hold fluid, needs to hold the oil back. So I'm just gonna clean up this edge. I just use this, and it's probably not as important for a plug like this, but just to clean up the end, because when you're doing joints that have gas running through it or liquid running through it, particularly small, you don't want any piece of Teflon tape to get in your system, because if you have small orifices and stuff, it could plug it up. So I always clean up the edge so that there's really, try not to get any exposed Teflon tape on the inside of what you're trying to seal. So here's the plug, and we'll put it into here. Tighten that down. This is always something that you can redo if it ends up not sealing, but you can see there's no Teflon tape on the inside to contaminate the system. Not really as important with this, but that's just kind of what I do. All right, so then that is that. Okay, so I'll go ahead and pre-install these fittings. I'm not sure which way they're going to want to point just yet, so I'm just going to put them in kind of loose. Just hand tight. And we'll go into the truck. Under the hood here, we've got to remove this intake plenum, and there's a couple of vent valves that have to come off. We've got one here on this corner and another over here on that corner. So we'll pop those off. Those should just be kind of push to remove. Looks like there's a kind of a slider on the back that you push forward, and that should take it off. I might need two hands to do it, so I'm gonna have to put the camera down, but we'll get that out. And then you have to take, there's a screw, hose clamp on the throttle body that we'll remove, and then we'll be able to move that forward. Try not to take it off of the airbox if I can. We'll pull that forward enough to be able to get access to what's underneath. All right, so we've got the intake plenum kind of removed and set off to the side. I did not disconnect it from the airbox. It just pulls up and over. What I'm seeing here as far as the flow routing is there's a hose down underneath the throttle body down here, right there. that's the hose that's going to be replaced with the installation of the kit, and the catch can will go in line with this. So the way I'm kind of understanding it, and I'm going to confirm this, I'm going to turn the engine on and make sure I know where the vacuum source is, but that's probably a vent with the PCV valve that's coming from the oil valley, the valley in between the cylinder banks, and it runs up and around. It runs up to another connection, which is this hose here, and that connects directly into, I can get a good line here, into this kind of plastic boss, which goes into the intake manifold. So I'm assuming that that is the vacuum source. So the way this works, we have a vacuum source that pulls vacuum through the PCV valve into the valley of the crankcase, and then that runs all the way up through the cylinder banks up to the valve covers, which is where we have our two lines that we disconnected that are pulling metered air from the airbox, clean air from the airbox. One thing that I've already kind of noticed, this should be clean air, right? But pulling these fittings off, you can see, I mean, they're very oily. The other one actually has a pool of oil collected in it, so there is definitely a lot. That's before the air even hits the crankcase proper. So there's a lot of oil in this system. Next step here is to get in, and we're going to remove this hose. So we're going to unclip from the PCV valve and from the intake manifold boss, and I'll get that hose off. Okay, so I've got the hose, stock hose removed. Just again, same kind of clip. You just push on this fitting right here, and that'll open it up. And you just pull straight out. So that has that on both ends. So pull that out. Have our connections down here. 1 and 2. So now I've got the catch can, mocked in here. I'm gonna try to keep it kind of tucked as much as possible out of the way. Still kind of working on what the hose routing will look like for final, but okay, so I've got the catch can mocked up in here, and we've got our 2 ports ready to receive. The one question that I had that wasn't in the instructions was which hose to use for which port, because they are different lengths. So the correct way that I've found, it doesn't work the other way, is to use the longer hose for the connection under the throttle body. That'll give you enough slack to be able to route it through cleanly up to the catch can. And then the shorter hose you'll just have to route appropriately to fit. So we'll get these hoses mocked in and see how that looks. Okay, so we've got the lines attached in here. This was the kind of the way I decided to route it here, coming off the fitting underneath the throttle body, up and over top, and then I directed the lines kind of down, kind of have them go, try to make it look as stock as possible. And then for the A side, again, similar, comes in so that both the lines are exiting about the same point, and it goes in and around underneath to where the stock line ran, and then over and connects up there. So once I get the plenum back on, a lot of this will be hidden. I did have to disconnect a couple of sensors just to make life a little easier. So I think this is a coolant sensor, and I think that's probably an air density or a pressure map sensor. So we have to be sure to put those back in before moving on. Okay. All right, that's pretty much the completion of the hose routing. Just got to tighten down the fasteners to hold it in place. Try to find a good orientation here. I think probably just like that looks good. And then you're ready to button everything back up. Okay, so there's the finished install. Got everything buttoned back up. put the 2 clips on the plenum. Those are all hooked back up now. They just snap in, and you can see catch can, side view. I might trim this a little shorter here on this hose just to make them run closer together. But for now, I'll just see how that goes. The one thing I'm probably going to need a different funnel to do my fill. That's probably the only drawback here, is that those hoses sort of get in the way of doing an oil fill. But nothing a long funnel won't fix. All right, so that's it. Thank you for watching.